Welcome to our podcast, The Creators. I'm John Kramer.
And I'm Jason Chichi, and we're Make Your Show.
We help anyone who wants to create an on-camera story to realize their vision every step of the way, from concept to writing to production and post-production.
In this podcast, we talk with creators who have done this themselves. We want these stories to inspire and educate anyone out there who is thinking of taking a shot at storytelling. Our guest today is Tony Award-winning actress Joanna Gleason. I'm so fortunate to call Joanna a friend and don't want to gush too much about her, but there's a lot to gush about.
We wanted to talk to her about her experience writing, producing, and directing her own feature film, The Grotto. With such a storied career, what inspired her to take the leap from in front of the camera to behind? How did she make it happen? And what did she learn from the adventure? You know, normally we would talk to people who have made their own work, again, mostly actors, and ask them, you know, about their career and how they started out acting. And we do not have time to hear about all the amazing roles that you've done.
It's a nice way of saying you have been in this so long.
Well, that's what's so incredible, though, that with such a storied career, you wanted to make something.
Yeah, I've been very lucky, and I've been in the theater and television for decades and decades. And I always knew that there would come a moment when there was the fork in the road, and also destiny and also fate. I was not going to have, nor did I really want to go from show to show to show to show, or to push with managers and publicists, push for constant exposure and movie to movie, which may have led to nice things, big things, shiny things. It may have, maybe not. I didn't feel like I was built for it. I don't know. It's not a self-deprecating way of saying I didn't think I was good enough. It's just sometimes you get the lay of the land. And I thought my lane is the theater, and everything else is gravy. The shows I've done, the TV shows I've done, for which I'm immensely grateful. And it was because of one of those shows I started directing, actually. Diane English, who created Murphy Brown, had me on a series called Love and War, and she let me direct a Love and War, but also 3 other shows that she had. And I thought, okay, and movies, I'm not a big face on the silver screen. I'm not going to have that. And I've done some work in movies that I'm proud of, particularly Boogie Nights. But there were just, as I got older, and after I realized what the wear and tear is of doing 8 shows a week, as you can talk to Katie Huffman about this and many other Broadway, many of us veterans. I thought I want to guide the narrative of my own life and my work. And I want to also be in my life more with Chris and kids and grandchildren. And I thought, all right, what can I do? And so I wrote a show for 54 Below, my first solo show in 2013. And it was a one-person show, but it had a string quartet, and it had, my music director on the piano and me and some little bit of backup singing. And I brought some friends up that I'd been in shows with, and I thought, okay, the expectation is you'll do from the shows you've been in. And I felt obliged to sing from the shows I've been in. And the show was very successful. But years later, I thought, I have another show to write. And it's about my parents. And my parents had just died, and they were 96 and 90. Still kind of processing the loss of my parents, I wrote a short movie, 14 minutes long, shot it in Connecticut for 2.5 days in the dead of winter, used mostly friends, actor friends. And it debuted at the Los Angeles International Short Film Festival, and also Cambridge in England. And I thought, okay, I now have my production team. These were friends who said, we love The Grotto. The Grotto is the name of the feature film. Let's do this short. Let's use this DP, Gabe Mahan. Let's see what we're like working together. And it worked beautifully, and it's a beautiful little movie. And it was my calling card to say to myself, well, maybe you can direct a feature. And I had written this feature and put it in a drawer, and some people had loved it. And the biggest obstacle to getting it made was the voice in my head. And the voice in my head said, who do you think you are at your age directing a feature film? Who do you think you are? You didn't go to film school and you're not young. Who do you think you are? You're not a big enough star so that the world will open up and give you all the resources you need to make your first feature film. It's just like there was always some spoiler in my ear. Everyone has the destroyer. And and it's very hard. You can say, all right, just don't listen. But you ask, what keeps people from doing these things, from taking that plunge? Two things are true. I mean, two things can be true always, if not more. One is you have absolutely nothing to lose, because as long as you say it is not going to devalue me as a human being to fail here or to not get the response I want here, it's not going to be anything about me. This project is either for them or not for them. It's binary. And the other thing that's true is stupider people than me are doing this every day. And if you just remind yourself that stupider people than you with dumber stories to tell,
Yes.
not even as artfully as you, are getting their stuff made every
So
day.
true. Less
You have
talented
nothing.
people, less experienced people.
Yes, you have nothing to lose.
It's really amazing. We've talked a lot about the internal critic that we all have. And I think two things really stand out for me. One, that I think a lot of actors would be very surprised to hear that someone like you, again, with the career that you've had, the success that you've had, are having those same thoughts, those same doubts. And number two, I'm not sure if we've actually given that advice for dealing with it, which is, I mean, I think it's called a fact check, right? When we have these dark negative thoughts, that we can look out in the world and see, oh, let's collect some facts and test our thoughts against those facts. And your fact check was great. There are plenty of idiots out there that are doing this. Surely I can do this.
But but they're not, maybe they're just not hobbled by that inner critic as much, and
I think that's
God bless
sure.
them. And really,
so true.
to their credit, they just going to march boldly forward, and maybe with that sheer momentum and some good sales pitch and their heart in the project, more power to them.
It can
Right.
get them somewhere, and with some luck.
Yeah,
I mean, in a way,
always.
it kind of reminds me of these people that you see that are climbing, El Capitan in Yosemite without ropes.
Yeah.
And you're thinking,
yeah,
they are missing a part of the brain that I have that is full of fear.
Or this is their life.
Yeah.
And if you want to look later, did they make it? Amazing. Did they not make it? That was their life. Yeah. And that was their choice.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so fun to hear, this is why we do this. It's so fun to hear these stories, and again, inspiring. And when you were creating it, what helped you in that process? Did you have teammates? Did you have partners? Did you remember inspiration for the project? What kept you going?
Well, what kept me going was I showed it to Chris, my husband, Chris, and his reaction was wonderful and his notes were wonderful. And I showed it to my son, who's an eagle eye kind of producer dramaturg. He's a singer-songwriter, Aaron David Gleason, but also another one of my trusted eyes. And I showed it to my sister, Sharon Hall, who's been a producer in television for decades and high up in the studio system. And her notes, and her husband, Todd Kessler, another brilliant writer who's written brilliantly for TV for decades and the biggest shows. And I have this kind of trusted circle. And another friend, Susan Rice, who's a screenwriter, one of my great friends, smart, taught screenwriting. So I knew I had something here. It had a false start, as many projects do. Years ago, a producer was very interested in it. A big star was very interested in producing also. Their lawyers kind of said to them, this isn't the project for you. It's too small. She's not a star. Why does she want to direct it? She's never directed before. And there was enough, clouding it that these two lovely people who were willing to take a leap at this thing were dissuaded. And I knew there came a moment when I got on the phone and said, thank you for taking it this far down the field. I love you forever. Let's part company. And it was when I regained my footing, because I was being, and not intentionally, but I was being minimized and kind of put in a corner and like, that's nice. We'll option it for zero money and you go away. And I thought, no, I didn't work all these years on it to walk away from it. And I'm forever grateful for their interest. Didn't work out. Then my son Aaron, said, show it to Todd Schatz. Todd's a family friend. He's a producer. He also has a side business, a tutoring business called Hebrew Helpers, and he gets people ready for their bar mitzvahs, and he goes all over the world officiating. But he and a filmmaker, Tim Kirkman, who is also one of the best teachers of film at USC, and Sean Akers and Kelly Wyan, the four of them, T for two, they read it and they said, we want to do this. We want to produce this movie for you. And I've started to feel supported and energy behind it. And we showed it around, a couple of pieces. Again, there was, has she ever directed before? And I don't know, and da-da-da-da-da. And then, of course, because Jason, you live down the road from me, up the road from me, I met a new friend, Nancy Lefkowitz, who read it and said, I love this. Come over for coffee, because a new neighbor from down the road, Laura Sudrow, who is Ouroboros Entertainment, just moved in down the road. She's coming for coffee. We got together for coffee. I never mentioned the movie, but I realized there's a wonderful woman here, and boom, the pandemic hits. Nobody sees anybody for a year. Nobody talks to anybody for a year. We're all cowering in our houses, and the sun comes out. There's some vaccines. I wrote Laura and I said, are you accepting submissions? I wrote a movie. She said, send it. I sent it on a Monday. And Wednesday she said, I'm on vacation. I read it. I'm crying. I love it. I saw your short film. I'm crying. I love it. Let's meet Friday. This never happens.
Right.
No, first of all, that the head of the production company would read it anyway, instead of farming it out to somebody. I thought, all right, there's a little magic here. And there's magic in the movie as well. She came over, we spent 2 hours talking, and at the end of the 2 hours, she said, I'm in. And I was lucky enough that this woman and her company fully financed this movie, the sole investor, and we were off and running. And I told T for two, we're in, Laura's in. They dropped everything else they were doing because they have all other projects, and we got it up and running very quickly, very quickly. And we shot in LA just at the end of Delta, right before Omicron. And so we had COVID protocols, vaccines, rapid testing, PCR testing, and nobody got sick for the 22 days we shot and for the 4 weeks of pre-production. Nobody got sick. And I thought we were blessed. So that's how it got made.
Wow.
That's amazing. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about, because again, the level at which you're operating in creating your project is different from a lot of the people that we're used to talking to.
You say that, and I know what you mean. It would appear that, okay, Joanna Gleason's been around for a long time. She has a certain, there are little asterisks by her name, and that she can go sideways into a level of what she wants to do next. And to a certain extent, that's not untrue.
Yeah.
However, here comes the voice. I had never directed a film, but yes, then I made the short, and I had directed, and I know how to work with actors, and I know how to tell a story. And yes, the name was enough to have people's eyebrows go up and go, oh, Joanna Gleason. When it came to finding the casting directors, they were in because they knew my work. And when it came to finding most of the cast, it was because we knew each other, we had worked together, or they knew of me. That's when it was useful to be Joanna Gleason, the most useful. But when you start from scratch, you start from scratch. A good piece of material doesn't always get made. A good piece of material that has a little bit of a thing attached to it, like her from, has a little crack in the door open. That's true.
But also, so you mentioned that you made a short first. So you wrote this short script and then you shot it. Mm-hmm. How important was it to have actually made the short film and getting people interested? Because I know from firsthand experience, they can't really envision sometimes what's on your page when you just send them a script. Was having the shot it an important part of this journey?
Very. First of all, it showed me what I'm like on a set. It showed me what I'm like in pre-production and how to delegate responsibility and how to enlist everybody, how to enlist them in bringing me their best vision of what should happen. And they did. And we had a shoestring to work on, and yet things materialized, things we needed, including a backup generator because we were running in an old house and things were going to fall apart. My husband ran to Home Depot and got a little, it was really kind of fly by the seat of your pants. And I needed to do it because I also knew this short film might be a bit of a calling card to somebody that I wanted to sell the Grotto to, somebody that I wanted to get interested in the Grotto. show them I've made a little movie. So
And another question about the short, were there people involved in making the short that helped make the feature more possible? And how did they do that?
Absolutely. It was the same production team. It was Tea for Two, the same 4 people, and the same cinematographer, Gabe Mahan. And Gabe and I had been talking about the Grotto for years, before he and I ever physically met. And also because he flew up to do the short, which is when I actually met him, but we felt like we knew each other. That when we said we're a go for the Grotto, Gabe was available, Tea for Two was available. I didn't feel like a stranger having to meet everybody new, having to interview and hire and wonder who's going to have my back and are we on the same wavelength. And a lot of that was, I'm working with friends here.
That's got to feel good. That's got to be an important part of it.
Yeah, I hope that with the next one that I have the same feeling. It'll be different producers because everybody now is onto their own projects, shooting and filming and producing. But I'm hoping that I can put together and attract a group of what I would love is women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who've been in this business for a long time.
Yeah.
And of course, some fabulous men, because you need fabulous men. But I'm hoping that we can put together a group that is so used to communicating well and so secure in who they are that, I like the ego-free environments.
Sure.
They're hard to find, but I like them.
They're hard to find, but that's true.
And then we had that on the Grotto. There were no games played. The cast had to endure shooting outside in the desert and freezing, and also boiling in Los Angeles. And we did. There was a lot of love on that set. If I could replicate that, if I could bottle that, I would do that every time. I could have just been, freshman really lucky with that. But I think if people like the material enough, you can create that environment.
So speaking of the Grotto, could you tell us what is it about and what inspired it?
What inspired it was that my life, though very shiny from the outside, when I was 40, fell apart. Personally, it had fallen apart twice. I was in a musical. I was about to go into a musical, Nick and Nora. This is his own story, which turned out to be one of the biggest flops Broadway has ever seen. But that's where I met Chris Sarandon. But I was at this place in my life where I thought, I'm exhausted. I'm 40. I don't really live anywhere. I'm not really making a nest anywhere. I don't have a partner. My son by now is, he's close to leaving the nest. I need more time with him. And everything felt scattered. Also, I mistrusted. I didn't fight for myself in ways that I'm able to do now. I didn't speak up during the rehearsal process of things that were going wrong and things that needed to change. I'm just such a yes, let's make it nice. Don't make waves. Sure, I'm a pro. But you learn from your missteps. You don't learn if the path is easy. You learn from the detours. And I said this in an interview, really, that you may think you know what your path is, but it's the detours that have all the great scenery. It's the detours where you look and go, I didn't know I could do that, or yeah, I never want to do that again, or bring snacks next time. So I was in a crisis, and my parents lived in Los Angeles, and they had a tiny house in Palm Springs that they bought for, at first, my grandparents to come down from Canada in the winter, to come down to thaw. And then Dad had all these aunts and uncles and then cousins and nephews, and everybody would come to this house in shifts, and they'd play golf and they'd relax. And then when I would go to the desert, I would weep and weep and weep, and I don't know why. It had a magical, very moving vibe for me. And I found myself thinking, what if there were a place to heal, like the Grotto at Lourdes in France? Do you know the story of Bernadette of Lourdes? It's a great movie, The Song of Bernadette.
Yes.
Jennifer Jones. I think she won an Oscar.
Jones, right.
Gorgeous movie, amazing movie, black and white, very beautiful. And I thought, what if there were a nightclub in the desert, a gay nightclub, where men had come to heal in the 80s, during the AIDS crisis in the 80s and 90s. And it had a grotto of rocks, styrofoam rocks, and it had a fountain, and it had a statue of the lady. She's never called the Virgin Mary in the movie or in my movie, but she's the lady. And what if they came there just to be with each other and to, to laugh and to heal? Because I'd lost a lot of friends. So I created the Grotto, and then I thought, all right, how would a woman in her 40s, how would that come into her life? And from there, I sprung this story of how she would, in a way, inherit this place through unfortunate circumstances, which opened up her eyes to the life she had been living. She'd been living somebody else's life. She had been in everybody else's story but her own, which sounds like that line from Into the Woods. I'm in the wrong story, my own line. And then I created some crazy acts for the club that would be a little passe, a little out of date, because now we're not in the 80s. Now we're in 2022. What would have happened to that club? Who would she meet there? Why was this club left to her by her fiance who died? And there's magic in the lights. There's the sign of the Grotto. The lights keep blinking and certain messages come through, and who's trying to communicate with her in the desert. And that's how it evolved. And this movie is it's a hybrid. Yes, it has drama and emotion. It's also very funny, and also tons of live music because it's a club. So it's got all those things, which makes it slightly hard to pin down as a genre. It's a standalone kind of, this is what it is. And when they say, the Grotto, drama, comedy, music, and
LGBTQ.
It's LGBTQ friendly. Yes, there are actually 3 gay characters, 7 Latino characters. It's a woman lead, other great women's roles, written, directed by a woman. I mean, it checks a lot of boxes.
Sure does.
Yeah. And so we got it made. It took a long time to edit, put all the pieces together, as it does. But we got into the Heartland International Film Festival in Indianapolis, and I thought, we got into a festival. And I went, a festival, another thing. I'm sorry.
Another Into the Woods line, John.
Another Into the Woods thing. I can't say the word festival without 12 people going, a festival.
Naturally.
Yes, and we went and we won. We won Best Narrative Feature Premiere. So where we premiered, we won. And that was astonishing for me that it played in Indiana. It played in what you would either think of as a Mike Pence red state or a David Letterman blue city. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That audience was filled with both. And some of the feedback I got was from the people that you would not have expected to be moved by it, who were incredibly moved by it. And then now we go off to Annapolis to their festival in March and the Garden State Festival in March. So that's all very exciting.
That is very exciting. And it again, you're good at kind of answering our questions before we ask them. But that might go along with the question of what for you was the biggest surprise in the process of creating this project. It sounds like the reception that it's getting right now, and with the audience crossover, I think sounds like one of the surprises. Anything else in terms of
I was surprised that I was surprised how I never ran out of energy for 5 minutes, not any day. And these are long days.
Yes.
But I was I was so ecstatic and so happy to be with everybody, and I was clear. But here's the big takeaway that I learned. Young filmmakers out there, old filmmakers out there, write everything down. When you get inspired that, you know what we could also have? We could have them singing in the background as they walk. Write it down, because in the heat of shooting, you're going to forget. Tell the script supervisor, tell the first AD, tell the DP, write it down. So that was my biggest lesson. That's what I learned. Write everything down so you don't miss anything. And also what I learned is take your time. You don't have to rush to make your days. And I rushed the first few days thinking I was obliged to get everything done, and I missed stuff. Take your time and try to beg for a couple of days or more of rehearsal before you start shooting. I would say to filmmakers, do you know how to tell a story? Do you know good stories when you see them? Do you go to the theater ever and watch good stories being told? Watch movies, watch great movies and turn the sound off and watch what's in the frame. Can you figure out the story without the sound on? I mean, a lot of stuff I see is very derivative of something that a young person has grown up with, that with no respect and no desire to learn about what came before. I'm very much a student of the films of the 30s and 40s, and that to me was great storytelling.
I totally,
Character.
I totally agree. As I grow older, I'm more fascinated by movies, older films, and their origins and how those people made those things when they didn't have half the trickery that we have now. When
Yeah,
it's something so organic about it and so
yeah.
real about it, even though the acting style might be not what we've come to accept or see in movies these days, I still find myself loving it so much and missing it.
I think some of the acting is actually truer and more human than a lot of what we see these days. But look, let's also say that Everything Everywhere All at Once, with all of its trickery, is a spectacular film. And likewise, a couple years ago, Moonlight, in its simplicity and telling that story, is a masterful, gorgeous film. It doesn't have to harken back to anything that went before. It didn't need any tricks. It needed these people in that story and those actors. And there's a lot of great, great work being done. There really is. I think that film school, the thing in film school, there are many film schools, and a couple of which with which I'm acquainted, put a premium on style over substance.
Hmm.
And don't really tell a story because the camera is truly focused on the director writer. Like, I'm the auteur. This is my signature and my everything. Whereas I think you should practically disappear. I mean, yeah, there are some of the greatest directors out there. It's one of their films because there is a style and there is a voice. But still, the movies that work the best for me are the ones where I'm in it. I'm not wondering, how did he write that? How did he shoot that? Or she? I'm in it.
Yeah, there definitely have been some movies lately, and I loved Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I don't know that I would put this film in that category, but there have been some really impressive films lately that I can't help but wonder, how did they do that? Whether
Yeah,
it's a cinematography trick
yeah,
or some other element. And I agree with you. I mean, the best films are the ones that draw you in,
yeah,
and you forget you're just in it, experiencing it.
yeah, yeah.
What do you think in the process of making your film? Because you just had some really incredible lessons, and I would say one of my favorites is the one with seeing what the images without sound. I think that's a really big one. What would you say were some of the biggest challenges that you faced in making your project? I mean, you talked about the long days. It didn't matter. You were energized because you were so, the passion was powering you, right?
Yeah.
But what were some of the things that you maybe wished you had known before you got involved that were challenges?
Well, you're going to lose locations. If you don't have a lot of money, the place that you envisioned in your head that you thought you had to shoot the scene is going to disappear. And suddenly you have two walls and the rest is glass and a warehouse. You know what I mean? And then you just think, okay, and you make it work. You have to be able to be flexible, really flexible, and think on your feet. At one point, my Gabe, the DP, and I said, let's not start this scene down there. Let's flip it. And everybody on stage goes, what? Like this. I said, we're going to start down there in the booth, and then we're going to walk. And because he and I are so in sync, and he so trusts me, and I so trust him. He shoots, my God, gorgeous. The film is gorgeous, that we could flip everything and, be nimble on our feet. But I wish I'd had more prep time with him alone. And I wish I'd had more rehearsal time with the actors. So we could have tried some things. Days get, it's always a thing about, we're losing the light, or I need the light to come in at this angle, or the guy didn't show up with or it's freezing outside and she's only wearing a summer top and she's frozen, So we had a snake wrangler. It's my favorite.
Wow.
Out in the desert, yes. I said, who's that person? That's the snake wrangler.
So he's
Oh,
controlling
good to
snakes
know.
that are in the script, or controlling?
No, no snakes in the script, and hopefully no snakes where my actors were walking.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
That's a good note to
yeah.
make sure you've got your snake wrangler if you're in
Have
the
a snake
desert.
wrangler. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your years of acting experience, and now being on the other side of it, working with actors. Do you have a particular way, or is it just an organic thing that happens because of your experience?
The good ones will bring you so much. And if you have an idea that something you're going to go for, it's probably already in their repertoire. And you just say, what if she were actually struggling to stay awake? And then the whole scene feels differently. Or what if she's more hurt than angry? And you just kind of ask those kind of questions. And I'll tell you, it's a lot to learn, particularly Betsy Brandt plays the lead, and she's just heaven. And she's got pages and pages every day. She's in just about every scene. And at some point, there is a law of diminishing returns when, if you haven't had enough rehearsal, you can't go back the fifth time and go, let's do it again. Let's do that. Because I, as an actor, if somebody comes to me the third or fourth time, I'm thinking, what do you want? Tell me what you want. Just tell it to me. Say it to me. You know what I mean? So there has to be a way, because actors they are bringing you the best available thing at that time. And if something's missing, then I haven't been clear, or we haven't had a minute to ourselves to just have that little bit of private rehearsal talk. Time is your enemy, really. Time and money, but we got it done. The miracle is, at 71, I made a feature film that I wrote and directed. That's the big miracle of the Grotto, my miracle. So now I can't play the age thing anymore because I've already done one. So now I'd like to be, 73 and making her second feature film, and that's just what my story's going to be.
Do you have, speaking of which, do you have something in the works?
Yes, I do. It's a drama. There's no music, there's no magic, there's no comedy, but it's a drama. It's a drama. And once again, it ends up in the desert. It starts actually sort of in the Midwest, and it ends up in the desert, which is a very magical place for me.
And will you follow a similar process? Will you make a short? Will you?
No, I won't make another short unless there's something unless I have the time and a short story I really want to tell. No, but will I luck into one investor who underwrites the whole thing? Unlikely. Will I, get it made in a year instead of the 12 years with the Grotto, of putting it away, not trusting myself, being tentative about it, thinking, who do I think I am? I've finished with those bad things in my head. I have something to show for it. So I'm hoping that the process will be, much more condensed, and that in the next couple of years, I can get the next one made.
So it sounds like your intention for creating this project was, it kind of grew out of this experience that you had with this specific place, and it was a story that you were driven to tell.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you fulfilled your intention with this project?
I did. I most certainly fulfilled the intention. When I look at the movie, or the things I wish I had done differently, every director I've ever known says, you'll feel that way. You'll say, why didn't I? I should have did it. Yeah. But am I proud of it? And does it stand up? Well, yes, I do think it does. I do want to do it again, because it falls under the heading of, what do you want to do now with your life? I mean, yeah, I just did an HBO pilot, a guest on the pilot of an HBO show. Yes, I go read stories at Selected Shorts, Symphony Space. Yes, I'll host this evening at Carnegie Hall. And yes, there are those places that I can still show up. Would I want to do another show in New York? I think if there were probably an off-Broadway show. Broadway has so changed. And I don't even know that's what I would want to do. But I'm sure if there's another off-Broadway play with a limited run, and a great role, and they want me, I would consider doing. I really would consider doing it. But you know what it takes, though. It takes you leaving your house in Connecticut and getting on the Merritt, and spending 2 hours in the car one way, and at the end of the night coming home for 2 and doing it every day for 8 shows a week, 6 days a week. It's a thing. It's a thing. And I love my time at home. And I love being with my husband and the kids and the grandchildren. And I love writing the movies and trying to get them done and all that kind of stuff. But if there were another great play with a role that I was a big enough draw to get, and I say that cynically because it's just a fact. It's a fact about the New York theater. So them's the facts. And I didn't toil in the fields of television long enough to be television famous. I've appeared in great things and had a great time, but I elected not to try to go that route. There was something in me driving me to say, no, you're a writer, tell your own stories, tell these stories. If you can, support yourself by doing everything else for a while, and then see if you can guide the narrative.
And would you say then that that your experience making the Grotto has motivated you to make more, or is there something else that's motivating you to make more?
Time. I think, okay. I said to my husband, I said, oh, I've just had this big birthday, and oh, I'm in Act 3, soon the curtain will come down. And he said, sweetie, your life is Shakespearean. That's 5 acts. Shakespeare in 5 acts.
Oh wow!
So if you think you're in Act 3, you got a couple more acts to go. And I thought, yeah, okay. What are you going to do with them? What are you going to do with them? You made the Grotto. I don't want to be like, there, I made my little movie, and okay, I won't bother you again. That would be the old voice. You don't have to put up with me again. And no, the hell with that. I have another one. I'm going to make another one. And I will make another one after that if I want to, or I will do something else, like spin the Grotto into a TV series, and I mean, it would make a great series. By the way, it would make a great series with all the acts coming to the club. So anyway, right now it's out and about with people looking at it, hopefully distributors and streamers, and somebody will buy it and it will be available for all to see. And that's how
we can see it now.
If you know the writer-director, she can send you a link.
For the general public, we're in the festival.
No, it's for festivals right now. However, I think I might be allowed, I don't know how this works in the world of it's in the marketplace, to have a charity screening somewhere in town. Maybe at that theater, the Sacred Heart Theater, where we raise money for something. So it's not making a profit. You know what I mean? It's not. So I'm going to look into that, because it would be fun to have, the locals, my friends, all my gang come and see it. Yeah. So we'll see.
Exciting.
Well, that's a great story. And I want to hear more about, if we can, what's next. But just for the people that are watching this, again, actors, because I feel a little bit resentful about it as an actor, being told all the time, you're an actor, you also need to be making your own work. So I do understand that, even though I have done it and I do enjoy it. I can understand that feeling. I think that a lot of actors probably have. I also have to be a writer and a director and a filmmaker. Some people feel that way, but what's your take on that now that you've done it yourself? Would you tell other actors that they should be making their own work?
No, I wouldn't tell them that they should be. I would ask them if they consider everything that isn't working downtime. That's the mistake. Your life without the work and a place to go to do your acting work is not downtime. It's your life. And this is the thing you have to get square with the universe. You have to have a life. And in that life, you have to be healthy and productive, no matter how. You have to do for others. Do for others. My father, to his dying day, said, do for others. It was practically a motto. I would have put it on his headstone if I thought about it. Volunteer, volunteer, volunteer. That can give you a sense that I've had a great day. I did something for somebody else. I'm not going to get every acting job I want. I'm going to be disgruntled that I didn't get the part I want. I'm going to have expectations that by the time I'm 27, I should have already. Your expectations will kill you. You'll become addicted to them. just keep making plans and forget about your expectations. Expect if you eat right and you let your family know you're fine and happy and you're good to your friends and you do something for others, you can expect that you'll feel good about life. There's this huge life out there. It cannot be all about, I'm only existing if I'm on stage.
Well, that does seem like a really great way to end it right there.
I can't think of a better way.
Well, did we find out enough? I want to make sure that we talk about every place that people can see the film and festivals that are coming up.
What Heartland in Indianapolis did is that they put it online for viewing during the festival. I don't know if there's a virtual festival for Annapolis. The Annapolis Festival is the 24th and 5th and 6th, I think, of March.
Okay.
And we just closed Cinema at the Bayou February 1st. We just were the last thing that they showed there. We're also at CineQuest on the West Coast. That's a virtual festival, I think, coming up. But Asbury Park is Garden State Festival, and that's our show. The Grotto will be playing the night of March 25th.
That's great. That's great. Okay. And we want to also make sure that if people want to be able to find out more about you and your projects, where do you like to send?
Okay, this is very exciting. For the first time ever, I'm slow to this. This weekend, I am meeting with two fabulously brilliant young people who are going to make a website for me, a real website, not with all the crazy kind of fan-based misinformation, helter-skelter kind of, Google her, because there's so much wrong on that. I'm going to make a Joanna Gleason a website, and then everything, the teaching, the shows, the movie, the short. I don't know if I can actually put the movie up on that. I have to wait to see if it's been bought or anything like that. But everything you need to know that I want you to know will be available on that.
That is exciting. Will the short be the short be there? Are you allowed to share the short?
I have a feeling, since there's not a big market for shorts that stand alone, I'll check with my producing team, and it would be a nice thing to have on there. It's called Morning into Night.
Joanna, I can't thank you enough. What you said was so inspiring, not just to our listeners, to me personally.
Thank you.
To hear you talk about process and how to incorporate being an artist into life is something I don't think we hear enough about.
Have a life, you must.
Because for creative people, it's so hard just to get those jobs. You can become obsessive about it that you forget you're supposed to be living a life.
First and foremost, because as we know all too well, and maybe for the first time in a long time in this country, it can go.
Yeah.
The thing that got brought to our shores and all over the world was a big reminder that attention must be paid.
That's right.
Yes, thank you for reminding us and for those stories and for teaching us.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, I feel I'm going to have a good day now.
Good.
And incidentally, I'm going to teach later, and I'm going to use some of what I learned.
Well, brilliant. Well, you're teaching. You're doing God's work.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
That's the aim.
Well, thank you so much, Joanna. It really has been a lot of fun talking to you.
Thank you, John.
Friend. Thank you
Jason,
so much.
Great to see you both, and thank you for having me.
Anytime.
Thanks for joining us. Well, my favorite quote, the detours have all the great scenery. Bring snacks.
Yeah. I know I just said it, but her story is so inspiring because living as an artist and how to incorporate our careers into everyday life can really be a challenge. And she manages to find that elusive balance.
And she gave so much great advice to actors about what they can be doing when they're not acting. Living a life, giving back, teaching.
You can find Joanna on Instagram at @TheRealJoannaGleason, and a fancy new website is coming up.
And you can find out more about us and Make Your Show by going to our site, makeyourshow.tv. And we'll have links to a lot of what we talked about here on our website and our blog.
Thanks so much for joining us, and keep a lookout for more episodes just like this one.